My name is Jake, welcome to the channel. In today's video, I want to share with all of you how my wife and I were able to invest into real estate to retire earlier or reach FIRE faster. But I want to be clear that I don't invest into real estate to be a landlord forever. I'm not going to be retiring early or living off of passive income through living off of a real estate portfolio. That's really not my goal. My goal is to reach FIRE, financial independence, and retire early 100% through my dividend growth portfolio. That's what it's all about. We invest into real estate so that we can take the proceeds, take the gains from one asset, and then position it into our portfolio. Here on the channel, it's all about reaching FIRE through dividend growth investing. And what I'm trying to do is look for new ways outside of just my day job of how I can make more money. What are things that I can do to invest in so that I can pump more money into the dividend growth portfolio here? So as you know, I dollar cost average into this portfolio from my day job. And so the goal here is to build up the portfolio so that it can 100% sustain my wife and I in early retirement. And every person is going to be different, right? If you're following the channel and you're maybe in a different situation, maybe you live in Arkansas or Idaho, you're in Boise and your whole family's in Boise and you know you're going to be living in Boise for the rest of your life. Well, yeah, investing in real estate, having maybe a couple of rentals can make a lot of sense. With my wife and I, we're down in Austin and we don't intend on living in Austin forever. And so what we prioritize is flexibility. We want to be able to travel. My wife is from Northern Germany, and so we want to make sure that we're able to go visit her family and her friends and not really be tied down to one location. I kind of think I don't know, every person is different. I feel like we're a little bit too early in our lives to really decide where we want to be forever. And that likely will change in the future. But for now, what we're looking to and what we're prioritizing is our flexibility in our life. And real estate does not provide a lot of flexibility. If you're a do-it-yourself landlord, if you're not relying on a property manager, and if you're doing it all yourself like we are, there's a lot of hands-on, hand-holding when it comes to making this all work. So the goal of this video is to walk you through how my wife and I, just average people, how we were able to invest into real estate to turbocharge our returns and our net worth. I've talked about this a little bit in the past that I've really gained inspiration from other YouTubers, right? Amon and Christina from Artist Journey, they really inspired us to invest into real estate because when we were first learning about FIRE, we loved the concept. It made a lot of sense. And when we watched this video, it really opened my eyes to investing into real estate and leveraging real estate to turbocharge your FIRE journey, right? This video here, the thumbnail, how we made $400,000 in profits in real estate. When I first watched this video 3 years ago, I thought to myself, there's no way that this could work for us. How could this ever be possible for us, right? That worked for them, but it didn't work for us. And that was my initial thought. And then I kept doing more and more research, understanding about real estate and investing into assets. And there was one day where I just said, you know what? I can watch a million videos on YouTube, but unless I'm taking action, nothing is going to change. And so after watching this video, we invested into our first rental property, and I am so thankful that we did. And I'm going to share with you the numbers in this video about how we, the purchase price, all the stuff that you're going to need to know if you're thinking about investing into real estate, whether you plan to hold the property and own the land and the property long term, or if you plan to sell it once you reach your FIRE goal, like my wife and I. And I will say, investing in real estate is not for everyone, and I completely understand that. And if you're in your early 20s or in your 30s or 40s, it really doesn't matter your age. If you're looking to speed up your FIRE journey, I think you should really pay attention and listen and watch this video because there's things that you're going to want to pick up on and understand that just your average person can do this. Real estate investing has definitely changed over the years, and especially now there's a lot more risks when it comes to investing into real estate, especially with VR. VR is a big risk that I think everybody has to understand. If you're going to have tenants in a rental property, you have to understand the risks that come with that. It could look a little like this. Oh, shit. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love it. Well, so I've never had any VR fails in, being a landlord here, but I will say I have had that, fix the toilet in the middle of the night. I kid you not, in my first year of renting out one of our rentals, I had one of our tenants break the toilet. For some reason, they dropped a glass vase through the toilet bowl. We had to replace the toilet. I called a guy just out of nowhere to come help me fix it. The toilet was really sharp. The guy helping me fix it cut his finger, was bleeding, gushing blood everywhere, went to go downstairs to get a rag, was touching the walls, touched the doors. There was blood everywhere. And so not only did I have a broken toilet on my hands, I had blood all over the walls because the guy cut his finger replacing a toilet. So, those nightmare horror stories that you hear with investing in real estate? Yeah, they can be real. But at the end of the day, I look back on it with a smile. It's just like, oh my gosh. But in the moment, it was stressful. Okay, so I'm going to walk everybody through 9 things, 9 steps that you should consider if you're just a normal person thinking about investing into real estate. And I'm going to share some things that you may want to consider, some things that I wish I would have known when I first started. Now, given I'm not an expert at this, I've been doing this for 3 years, a little over 3 years. There's plenty of other people out there that have much more experience, are much better, have better understanding with the macro side of things when it comes to different states. I can only really speak from personal experience and the things that I've learned and really try to simplify it for your average person. But do keep in mind the things that I'm saying, there are going to be a few nuances depending on the state that you live in. If you're in New York or if you're in California, those are very tenant-friendly states. If you're in Texas like me, it's very landlord-friendly. So you have to understand the environment that you're in. All right, the first thing that I want to talk about, if you're looking to invest into real estate to reach FIRE faster, if you've never invested into real estate, the very first thing that you have to understand is you have to understand your credit score. Your credit score is your gateway to getting a loan from a bank. Unless you're going to buy the house flat out in cash, the majority of us, we need to get a loan to purchase the home. So we're going to get the house on a loan. And so that's the very first thing that you need to make sure that you have in check is that you have a strong credit score. Once you got your credit score under control, the second thing that you want to focus on is you want to find a local real estate agent. You need to have a real estate agent. Your agent helps you. Your agent works for you. You don't pay the agent anything. When you're the buyer, the person selling the home is paying both your real estate agent and their agent. So the real estate agent is working for free for you, and they're working 100% on commission, and they work for you. So very, very important. And here's the tip that I would give you if you're looking for a real estate agent is look for somebody that's local. Look for somebody that is maybe doing this as a side job, right? There's tons of real estate agents out there that have, this is kind of their side gig. They have their normal job, but they're also a real estate agent on the side. The reason why this is so great is you can befriend this person. And this is a true story. Before we moved to Austin, we actually met by chance a real estate agent here locally, and he actually turned out being a really great friend of ours. And on every transaction, I've been loyal to him. He's been loyal to us. Every purchase that we've made, we've done through him, and he's shared his commission with us. Remember, the seller pays the commission. And so my agent, because we worked out a deal together, he is giving me half of his commission on every purchase that we make. But with that, you probably are not going to be able to expect that. You likely will not be able to expect that from a professional agent who does this 24/7, because that's how they pay their bills. It's not just their side gig. So make sure that you understand that if you can find a local agent that's doing this kind of on the side, you can work out a deal to save a little bit of money on your commission. The third thing is you have to be pre-qualified. If you're looking for a home, you don't just randomly go to an open house and say, all right, I'm ready to buy a house. No, it doesn't work that way, especially in the market today where it's so hot. You have to be pre-qualified. You have to go to a bank or a broker or somebody that's going to be able to loan you the money, and they have to already pre-qualify you. And the way they pre-qualify you is you have to send them information. You have to send them maybe 2 years of work history. You have to send them W-2s. You have to send them tax returns, possibly. They have to analyze your debt to income ratio. What are they going to approve you for, right? So are you approved to purchase a $400,000 house, a $500,000 house? How much money are you able to loan? How much money will the bank loan you? Because no seller in this, especially in this market, is going to accept an offer from you if you're not pre-qualified. And my tip here is, if you're buying local, go to a local credit union, go to a local broker. In my opinion, don't go to one of the big banks. You're not going to get the best interest rate there anyways. If you're a new investor, shop around locally, and that's the big tip that I would give you there. And one last thing here, to get pre-qualified, you don't need anybody's help. You can go directly to a bank and say, hey, or a credit union, hey, I want to get pre-qualified to buy a house. You don't need anything else other than a good credit score, and that is it. They will then tell you, what you're going to be able to loan. So you can do this step with the bank either before or after you find your real estate agent. But they're absolutely vital. Credit score number one, and then number two, the agent, and then the pre-qualified, they kind of go together. The fourth thing is you have to know your market. There's a reason why Zillow fell on its ass when it tried to use algorithms to buy and purchase real estate. Real estate is it's a regional thing. It's very regional. It's very local. You can't necessarily look at, across the globe or across the United States when you're looking at trends and all of the data. When you look at market data on a national level, I always look at that and be like, ugh, that doesn't apply at all to my market. So you have to know your market. You have to understand which neighborhoods are appreciating, which neighborhoods are not appreciating, which neighborhoods have developments coming up in the coming years. You have to understand that city permits, especially now with the pandemic, they take longer. And so if you understand that maybe a new shopping center is being built down the road from you and that may take 2 or 3 years, you can bet that your real estate prices are going to follow and go up with that development. So first off, know your neighborhood, know your market, and you have to understand every market is different, right? You go and you listen to bigger pockets. They're like, yeah, buy a fourplex, buy a triple, a duplex, buy plexes, all the plexes in the world, blah, blah, blah. That does not apply to me in Austin. There's no duplexes here in Austin. There's only condos and single family homes. And so when I was watching Bigger Pockets, I was like, okay, I got to go buy a duplex. I got to go live in the one side. I'm just like, there are 3 duplexes in all of Austin. And I'm just like, okay, what is going on? Bigger Pockets told me to go and buy a duplex. How do I buy a duplex? How do I buy a fourplex? In certain states and cities, that's more common. So you have to know your market. Here in Austin, the sweet spot for me has been single family homes. That has been so lucrative over, trying to get into a bidding war for a duplex because there's only like 3 of them on the market. So that's really, really important. Know your market. And when you're watching these videos, whether it's Bigger Pockets or these other channels, there's a lot of great ones. Understand that you need to know your market, and every market is different. That's why I'm not going to sit here and tell you anything about any other market, because I'm not the expert. I can only really talk about here in Texas and here in Austin particularly, but know your market. The fifth thing is before you buy the house, the rental property, whatever you're buying, make sure that you know what you're going to do, how you're going to manage this. What are you going to manage yourself, and what are you going to contract out? For example, with repairs, are you able to fix a leaky faucet? Are you able to fix a roof repair? Are you able to fix whatever? You need to understand that houses, rental properties, they break. Things, wear and tear is real. If you have somebody playing VR, slams his head into the wall, breaks through the drywall, are you able to fix and patch drywall, or do you have to call somebody else, right? Does your carpet need to be replaced? Do you have your washer and dryer? Did it just go out? What are you going to do there? So you have to understand, and this is where a lot of new investors fail, myself included. I was very overwhelmed, like just overwhelmed beyond belief when it came to, okay, planning for the unforeseen and the unknown. It was really intimidating. And that barrier to entry, that is why it prevented me from starting so long to invest in real estate, because of the fear of the unknown, right? And I'm just so grateful that I just dove right in and I learned as I went, right? I didn't have all the answers, right? And you don't have to have all the answers to start. So that's the important thing. Understand, what are you going to manage yourself and what are you going to contract out? For example, the lawn service. If you own a single family home, who's going to do the lawn? Are you going to do it on the weekend? That's what I did. I tried to do that in the beginning. I bagged leaves and did all that the very first time. It was horrible. I decided, you know what? It's worth it to just pay somebody else, take a little bit of a lower return and contract it out. But you have to understand what's important to you. Also, escalations, right? Let's say, for example, your tenant's not paying rent or something goes wrong. How are you going to handle those situations? That's very, very important. The legal aspects of buying and renting, working with a lease, finding a tenant, understanding your local laws, what you can and cannot do. Once again, California and New York, very tenant friendly. Other states like Texas, they're very landlord friendly. In Texas, if a tenant's not paying me, within 3 days, I can give them a notice, and within a week, I can have them out of the home. Right? Now, obviously, there was a lot of challenges during the pandemic when it came to that. But in normal times, you have to understand what are the laws? What are you protected by as the landlord? And how is the tenant protected? So very, very important, knowing what you're going to manage yourself and what you're going to contract out. And knowing, really, the important thing is knowing when you need to ask for help. Right? That's so key. And that's why I mentioned the local realtor. I can't tell you how many times things went wrong. And I texted my realtor. I was like, dude, I got this problem. What do I do? How? And then he had an answer for me immediately, right? I didn't have all the answers. He did. He was the expert, right? So you got to find somebody that you can ask and you can get those questions answered in a timely manner. Right? Really, really important. The next thing here, number 6, is know your numbers. You have to understand what your total expenses are and what your bottom line is going to be, right? You have to understand what is coming out and what is coming in when it comes to the numbers. How much is it? How much are you going to be paying in property taxes? How much are you going to be paying on the mortgage? How much is the rent going to come in? What if this or that happens? All those unknowns, like you have to know the top and bottom lines. And as well as that, you have to understand the tax laws, especially if you're renting or if you're planning on doing something a little bit interesting, which I'll talk about here now. So what my wife and I did, and I can talk a little bit more this later in the video here, this is why the average person here in the United States should buy a home. If you ever hear somebody say your home is not an asset, just smirk at them. Just be like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. Your home is an asset. Whether you're living in it or you're renting it, your home is an asset, is an appreciating asset in most cases. There is a law here in the United States that if you live in your home as your primary residency for two of the last 5 years and you sell that home, you will pay zero capital gains taxes on it. I'm going to say that one more time. If you live in the home for at least 2 years and you sell the house, you will pay zero capital gains tax on the proceeds, on the gains of that sale. So imagine you own Tesla stock and you make $100,000 on Tesla stock. Depending on how long you held Tesla, you're either going to pay long-term or short-term capital gains. It's fairly similar with real estate, but if you lived in the home for at least 2 years, you'll pay zero capital gains tax. Now, there are some nuances you have to understand. There's different amounts based off of if you're filing single or married. I would recommend taking a look at this. This is on the IRS website directly. You can see here it's the Section 121 exclusion. If you've lived in the home for at least 2 of the last 5 years and you sell it, you'll pay zero capital gains tax up to a certain amount, depending on if you are single or married, or filing jointly or single. So really, really important. This is how my wife and this is how we were able to make such massive gains in investing in real estate, which we're then going to take and invest into our dividend growth portfolio. But now I want to walk you through a real life example, just very quickly, how my wife and I have done this, and really the real life numbers. All of these numbers here are actual numbers for our real estate portfolio. We bought our first house here in 2019. So you can see we went under contract in 2018. We moved in 2019. We're now this is brand news. We're selling this house here actually this weekend. long story short, the tenants that we had in there, they signed a 2-year lease. We expected them to be in there for the next year and a half. And they decided that they wanted to break the lease and move back to Dallas. And so we agreed that, we said, okay, you can leave, you can move out, that's fine. And now we have decided to sell it. It's on the market. I have 2 offers in hand, and we're looking to sell it here this coming week. So really, really excited about that. That's the first time I'm talking about that. But yeah, just really out of nowhere, out of left field, I got a call from the tenant. He's like, "Hey Jake, we're going to be moving." I was like, "But didn't you just sign a 2-year lease?" And he's like, "Yeah, but we're leaving." So that happened. But long story short, we lived in this first house for 2 years. So we lived in it and then we've rented it out. Our mortgage was just around $1,200. Our property tax is just under $1,000. We have an HOA. We have homeowners insurance on it. We have 0 PMI, no home warranty. The repairs are very minimal because it's a brand new house. It's brand new. We bought it new in 2019. We had the builder build it. I've had so much success with buying new homes here in Austin. It's been so, once again, you got to know your market. Landscaping, we pay about $80. Pest control, not so much. Air filters, a little bit, and other. So all in all, we have total expenses of about $2,364. The rent is $2,525. We cash flow about $161 a month, including the principal pay down of $400. So we're making just about $550 a month on this property. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to necessarily go through every single one of these, but this was the other house this was a pure rental. So we moved. So this one right here, we moved into this house. We lived in it for 2 years. We're now selling, and we rented it for a year. We're now selling it, and we're going to pay 0 capital gains tax. This house right here, it was a resale, and we bought it in 2019. We rented it out from day one. And we ended up putting like 25% down on this house. The financing is different if you do it owner occupied versus as an investment. If you do it owner occupied, you can put anything down from 3 to 5% depending on the loan. And if you're doing it as an investment, you're going to need a minimum of 20 to 25% down for a bank to loan you money. And that whether it's 20 or 25, it's going to depend on the market. It's going to depend on your credit worthiness, your debt to income, the bank, all that stuff. So we ended up selling this last November. I've talked a little bit about that. We're in our current house right now. We've lived in this house for a year, a little over a year now. We're going to be living in this house for a total of 2 years. We're going to move out at the end of this year. It'll be 2 years. And then we're going to move into another house, which we're under contract that is currently being built. It's a new construction home that is currently being built. We'll move into this new house at the end of the year. But our plan is we're going to live in this house for 2 years, like we did the first. We're going to rent it out for another 2 years, and then we're going to sell it and pay 0 capital gains tax. The first one, we lived in it for 2 years, paid 0 capital gains tax. This one, we never lived in. We'll pay long-term capital gains tax because we had it for over a year. This one, we're going to live in it for 2 years, pay 0 capital gains tax. So you'll notice a trend. The average person, what you can do every 2 years, you can do this. You can invest into a property, and then if you lived in it for 2 years, you can pay 0 capital gains tax, and you can do that every 2 years. As long as it's the last two of the last 5 years, you had to have lived in it. So if you plan it right, about every 2 or 3 years, you can move into a new house, sell it, pay 0 capital gains tax, and that is how your average person can grow their net worth and reach FIRE faster. So that's really the core thing here of this video that you have to understand. And once again, if you don't understand it fully, go do some more research on this. It's the section 121 or topic 701, sale of your home, and you'll pay 0 capital gains tax on it. Very, very important. So here, let's look at some of the numbers here. These are the actual numbers when it comes to our proceeds here. So the first house, as I mentioned, this is the house that we lived in for 2 years. We have two offers. I'm going to accept one offer here, and it's going to be right around $585,000. So we bought the house for $327,000 back in 2019. And we're selling it for about $585,000. We're going to pay 5% in realtor costs. We're going to have closing costs of about $4,500. And here's the golden nugget right here. Because we lived in it for 2 years of the last 5, we're paying 0 capital gains tax on this house. We're going to have a total gain of over $225,000 in 3 years. And we're going to have a cash on cash return. This cash on cash is what we put on the down payment to the bank. We're going to have a 325% cash on cash return. Absolutely incredible. And on our second house, this was the rental property that we never lived in. We bought it and we rented it from day one. We bought it for $310,000. We sold it for $496,000. There's a long story here. We kind of got bamboozled. This was the first house that we sold. We didn't do it as well as we could have. We could have got about $10,000, $20,000 more had we done it a little bit differently. Long story short is the appraisal came in shorter. We were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. We wanted to get rid of it, just get over with it. And we took the lower amount. So that is what it is. The realtor costs came in at $17,000, 3.5%. We sold it with our friend who didn't charge us. He charged us 0.5% to sell it, and we paid 3% to the buyer's agent. So 3.5% versus 5%. The closing costs were about the same. Taxes. We're paying $25,000 in taxes for this home. But regardless, nonetheless, we're going to make about $140,000 in total gain, and that is 165,000. That is 165% cash on cash return. And so I don't have the numbers here for this, obviously, because we're still living in this home. The home value for this house that we're in today is worth about $650,000. And the home that we're having built, we have it under contract for just under $500,000. And we anticipate by the time it's completed, it should be worth right around $575,000, $600,000, given how long they've taken to build the home. So that's the numbers behind investing into real estate. You don't have to be a math guru to make this work. You just have to understand what are the expenses, how much are you bringing in rent, and if you're doing it yourself, you can control a little bit more, right, to make sure that you always have a tenant in there or whatever. But the big key takeaway here is that pay no capital gains tax if you lived in it for at least 2 years. All right, moving on to the seventh thing here. You're going to hear a lot of people say, oh, now is not a good time to buy, or yes, now is a good time to buy because of X, Y, and Z, because of interest rates, because of the market, blah, blah, blah. My saying to you is when we first bought our first house a couple of years ago, it was at the all-time high. It was the all-time high. Now, obviously the market could have gone the other way and we could have gotten screwed. That's always a possibility. There's a possibility with that always. But the key takeaway here that I learned is when you're if you're asking the question when you should buy, you should not base your decision to buy on anything else other than you and your particular situation. Whether you're single or you're in a couple, married, you have to look, is now the right time to buy or sell for you and not necessarily what's going on in the market. You have to look at what's right for you. And that's the key thing that I've learned here during this process. All right, the next thing here, the eighth one, is have a rainy day fund for unknown expenses. Now, this is really important depending on the age of the home. To replace a roof, it's going to be like $16,000, $17,000, $20,000. You could always fix it. You could always have your insurance take over it. Like there's things that you can do to mitigate it. You could have an AC unit go out. You could have, an appliance breakdown. You got to get a new washer. I've had 2 washers break on me. It's $500. We got them used off of Facebook Marketplace, right? Like There's always going to be these unforeseen expenses, but depending on the age of the home is how much money I would have on the side. And if your house is over 10 years old, I would highly consider a home warranty because you never know. Right before we sold our last house last year, our AC went out. It froze here in Austin and the AC broke, and the home warranty paid for itself with that one repair. So there was many times where the home warranty fought us and wouldn't pay for stuff, but for some things, you want to read the fine print. A home warranty can actually be a good idea in some cases. But as an example, with our newer houses, we don't have a home warranty. It was just on that older house. All right, the ninth thing is when you're looking to invest into real estate, and if you're kind of deciding, is this the right thing for you? What I would encourage you to do is before you even get into it, have an entry and an exit plan from day one if it's possible, right? So understand when you ideally want to get into the market, when you ideally want to get out of the market, what are your goals? And this is important, especially with that 2-year rule, right? If you want to optimize the taxes and pay zero capital gains tax, you want to kind of plan around that. It's very important. It's a hard cutoff, right? To the day. You have to make sure that you're following it and you understand it. So when you're getting into this, kind of have an entry and exit plan kind of played out in your mind of when you want to optimize this. That's really, really important. And because you're talking with real estate, it is an illiquid asset. You really have to plan in advance. It's not like you go on Robinhood and click sell and then it's just sold, right? Like you really have to plan ahead with this. So with that, you really have to plan on what money you're going to be using for the property. You probably don't want to be invested into Bitcoin or Tesla stock if you're planning on using that money for a down payment in 30 days or in 60 days, right? You want to have that money ready to go so that it's ready so you're ready. And this also will depend on if you do owner occupied versus as an investment property. If it's owner occupied, you can get away with anywhere from 3 to 5% to get the loan. And if it's an investment property, you're going to need anywhere from 20 to 25%. Me personally, so these other houses that we're buying them owner occupied. It is a little bit annoying to move every 2 years, but understanding that we can retire 2 years or 3 years earlier definitely made it worth it to us personally. But understand, the ramifications and understanding how much you're going to need for the down payment. And for me personally, I love using the bank's money to leverage and to invest into assets. And so for me personally, I want to put down as little as possible because I know that I'm going to sell it in the next couple of years. And so I want to maximize leverage. Now, obviously not everyone's going to be in the same position or, be able to stomach that. The important thing is you have to have a plan in place. You don't want to over leverage, right? You don't want to buy something that you can't afford, but if you can afford it and the finances work, I personally love leverage. I love leveraging the bank's money and getting compounding returns on the bank's money. But once again, your average person, you have to do the math. You have to know, kind of do a risk management assessment of if that's right for you particularly, because every person's situation is a little bit different. The last thing is, if you're like my wife and I and you plan on selling the house, after having lived in it for 2 years or whatever your plan is, you have to have a plan. Or what are you going to do with that money? Once you sell, how do you repurpose the money? What do you do with the money? And that's something that you kind of have to have in your mind. For my wife and I, it's very clear. We're going to put it into our dividend portfolio and we're going to reinvest that into our portfolio and then live off of the dividend income. So that's been our goal. Well, everybody, I hope that this was helpful. These are 9 things that I think everybody should consider. If you're just an average person looking to invest into real estate, but you're not quite sure how, I hope that this was helpful. And as I mentioned, I really can't speak for other markets outside of Austin or Texas. I really, once again, I only know what I know. But if you do have questions, if you are in the Austin area or if you're here in Texas, you can shoot me an email, shoot me a message, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Hope everybody has a great rest of your Sunday, and I'll catch everybody in next week's video.
You know what? I think we're gonna be friends. Can everyone say hi to my friend? That's crazy. I just wanted to say thanks. I'm glad you came along, partner.